You are watching
It's been a
Xirtus.
minute since Bobby Kennedy's been on the front stage, but he's been saying that they wanted to look into the root of autism. And they were
Mhm.
saying, like, there really are a lot of factors that go together, which is, both a way pharmaceutical companies can hide their culpability, but also true. I mean, it's true that we built a world that really facilitates this acceleration of autism, and then things that keep people from learning how to deal with their own lives. I mean, if you are maybe somewhat of an autistic person, in the 60s you might have just collected stamps or something like that, but now if you're raised with this freaking mask over your face, and you have to think about this is 2025, so we're 6 years, 5 or 6 years into the COVID generation, kids who were raised with masks over their face didn't get to see their mothers. We already scale that, go back to inner cities in the 1960s when formula milk is being given, which once you give bottled formula milk to kids, they're not going back to the breast. Being at the breast, you're able to hear the mother, feel the mother, see her face
Get her
really up close,
antibodies and
get her
directly.
antibodies and get her mannerisms, understand her mannerisms, and understand these things have been taken away from kids who are forced to have virtual Zoom Skype meetings as
Listen,
their.
this generation of children I'm talking about that was born right at the end of COVID, that one of the first things they did to that once they became infants was they made a run on baby formula. So they created this kind of like they did with toilet paper, right? They did this weird like, oh, there's not enough baby formula, you better run out and get it now, which is like
Instead of just buying a bidet and breastfeeding your child like the Frenchman. Yeah,
yeah, basically. But again, it was like I feel like there's this generation they want to attack that they don't want to reach full power.
for sure. Yeah, it's 100% real. Okay, we're gonna get close to the end here, so I wanted to ask before it's too late about Shavuot. Right? You want to tell me about this? You're Jewish. Tell me
Shavuot.
more. Shavuot.
Shavuot.
Shavuot. All right. What is it? What's it about? What's the feast? What's the harvest? What are we doing with Shavuot? Do you know much about this ritual? This was
Uh,
the this was the other day.
look it up because I'm not going to do it justice at this point. You know, you got to understand, like my connection to Judaism is mostly Jewish mysticism.
Sorry,
I
didn't mean
don't.
to pop quiz you. It's a biblical festival that marks the wheat harvest. Okay,
Okay.
so it's a harvest season, so you can kind of connect it to Halloween to an extent. If you really wanted to, although it happens middle of the year. Things change because of the
Is
lunar
it because the
calendar.
okay?
Yeah, but this is something that happened the same day that the peace talks happened, which didn't go well in Istanbul. Istanbul being Tartaria, the Jerusalem or Jerusalem, not in Israel, but originally Christians and Jews and Muslims all thought that Jesus Christ was crucified in Istanbul, right? And they called it Jerusalem, and that was where a lot of Christians made their pilgrimage to go see. And there's all these paintings you can see of Christ being crucified in Istanbul. So it's interesting that they were doing the peace talks, and the Pope was trying to get the peace talks to be in the Vatican. The Vatican being a place where the Christians who were kicked out of Istanbul had to go and kind of justify their whole existence by making up this whole Saint Peter thing,
I
right?
see
Because they're not really
that
from.
is kind of synchronistic, right? Yeah. So this is kind of edgy, but I'd seen that somebody was sharing these supposed flyers that probably existed. You know, this is probably a real thing, and they're saying they were coming from Israel. And it had something written in Arabic on them that wasn't actually a verse from Torah. It was a verse that was like maybe from the Quran or something, but it was speaking to the Red Sea, and somebody was interpreting this as saying, you know, that they're threatening that they're going to kill them with the Red Sea, the way that it was referencing something from the book of Exodus, where you know the mixed multitude, the Red Sea opened up, they crossed, and then but the thing that got me is I was like, this doesn't make any sense because what in the story happens? The Egyptian army gets crushed. So I was like, they're saying that this is coming from Israel. What are they saying? That we're going to push like get crushed ourselves? Like I didn't it didn't
Yeah, we're about
what they
to
were
get
saying
crushed
that it
ourselves.
said didn't make sense to me if you're following the allegory. Because I'm just like, and I'm like, is this coming from Israel or is this? Am I looking at a bill that came from Hamas? But if you look at the edge, it's got the star. It's got indications that this is Israeli. So
Well,
I
didn't
I'm
didn't
like, it's
technically didn't Israel kind of create Hamas indirectly?
Not that
what
indirectly.
the best way I've heard it put, if you want to get into the particulars, is that there's a perverse relationship between the government of Israel and Hamas that goes back to 2006 when Hamas won by 3 points in their one and only election. So like, and there was a lot of other groups that were running. This is my issue, is that it's one of corollaries. So it's like, and a lot of the arguments that when I do get in arguments with people online about Israel Palestine, and this might sound arrogant, I'm sorry, but it's kind of like somebody will stand there and they're arguing that 2 + 2 = 4, and I'm saying, yes, totally, I agree with you, and I'm over here looking at algebra, like I'm like, that is true, and this is also true, and some people can't handle that because they'll just keep yelling at me, repeating this thing that I actually agree with. And I'm like, yeah, and there's other things here as well. And when you get into the particulars around Hamas and historically and what's been happening with Hamas, it's like there's the one simple way to put it is that nobody here is saints. You know, like I had an Israeli tell me that when I used to be on the other side of this in my 20s, completely on the other side, where I was just like just like repeating the phrase, that anti-Zionism is not anti-Judaism, which I still agree with. But I was like, I had a communication with an Israeli man, and he was telling me, and I ended up disagreeing with him for even a while after this. I didn't agree with him at the time, but he was just saying, no one here, if we're talking about sides of the tribalism of this, is saints, and we want to root for the underdog. Maybe it's the Mighty Ducks, like we grew up on it, or something like that. Like I can understand that, but at the same time, like it's good to root for people who are being put into a horrible position. No, I'm not arguing against that. It's just that there is a perspective to be had here, and you're not getting it from the media right now. It's really, you're not going to get it from your algorithm, because your algorithm is generally being tailored to give you a bias. It's difficult. Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, no worries. I don't know how good of a sync this is, but you guys know that we're talking about the peace treaty a couple days prior to that, at the beginning of the Shavuot, however you say this, Shavuot. Shavuot. The Ukrainian on Putin's way to the peace treaty talks, his helicopter, which he could pilot his own helicopter, but I don't know exactly if he had to end up doing that, was being attacked, and they tried to kill him. Ukrainian drones were trying to take him out of the sky on the way to the peace talk. So this didn't help the peace talks. Then the peace talks are happening, and they end with the bombing of Russia, which now there's this quiet before the storm, right? And Russia's clearly more, it's going to be all action, no words kind of a thing. And, we
deep in Russia, the attack, that's what's so freaking crazy, man. It was like,
yeah, and how they did this was they attached drones to the backs of Russian trucks. They espionaged them into Russia. So and then they used probably Starlink. We don't know for sure, but it sounds like Starlink was used for the drones to pilot themselves. So, and then Lindsey Graham had just gone to visit Zelensky a day.
$100,000 for his hotel. Sorry to interrupt.
No, for sure. I mean, like, I hate Lindsey Graham. I mean, I can't help you. Like, I don't like the guy. But like, so here's the thing. We've set up, Alex Jones is crying on his own little thing, because we're basically, it should be obvious what's coming next, right? Like, it's going to be noon at midnight. That's kind of, I think, the next week's title is Noon at Midnight. And I had a weird dream about that this morning, for real. But I've been thinking about when things could happen, right? Well, June 12th is Russia Day. It's like Independence Day for Russia. It's the day that the day of adoption of the Declaration of the State Sovereignty, right? This is the day that Russia had independence from itself, from the Soviet Union that preceded it. And we think of this maybe differently than Russians do. I think Russians think of this as both the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Bush, H.W. Bush, CIA humiliation and defeat of the Soviet Union, the internal cancer that destroyed the Soviet Union after years of espionage and destruction of Pripyat, right? Chernobyl and Ukraine. This all kind of culminates in Russia Day. And so Russia Day, that's coming up on next Thursday, on June 12th. And there's another one coming. There's another day that's kind of like between Independence Day and Operation Barbarossa, right? And Operation Barbarossa was when the Reich invaded the Soviet Union, June 22nd. And this is the anniversary coming up. And so I just thought, hey, if there's a sync that's coming, I mean, they're going to sync them probably sometime between these days. That's
so Alex Fulton is
pitch.
called out, I think, June 10th to 12th or something like that. I might be wrong.
Yeah,
and
he did too? Okay, good.
That's a day or two after Jupiter ingresses into Cancer, where it's in exaltation, which is generally considered a real powerful place for Jupiter. Cancer, though, is the most nationalistic sign. Cancer is really where you protect your own.
Are we really rooting for the underdog if it just means perpetual war for them? Like, are we rooting for the underdog when the citizens of Ukraine, and so many, don't want
which is the underdog
go along
here,
with what they're being told? Like, are we getting a real depiction of what the people of Ukraine actually want, or what their government is pushing? And so it's similar with like Israel. The amount of protests against Netanyahu's government in Israel is like, it's crazy. It's never been to this degree. We're not getting told that from Al Jazeera necessarily. The amount of what's been happening with Palestinians, Gaza, like protesting Hamas at the risk of what that could mean for them. Like there's huge protests happening for that. I'm hardly seeing any of that in mainstream, even X. Like, people think if you're on certain other social media that you're getting a full picture too. They're like, oh, I'm hip. They're like, no, you're not seeing. Like, they're shouting, where is Al Jazeera, like in the streets in Palestine, wanting to know why they're getting no media coverage as they protest against Hamas. So, like, I'm sorry, it's very relatable to what's happening in Ukraine. They're grabbing people from their families and off the street, like, and handicapped people and everything, and putting them into war zones and like forcing them to fight a war that they don't want to fight, that they don't think that they can really win. And we keep asserting, like, come on, just it's sunk cost fallacy in both cases. Like, I'm like, is there another way to do this? My God.